A smartphone straight out of Battlestar Galactica, lawsuit-happy luxury smartwatch brands, and a phone camera that flips up like a deranged mechanical pancake. These, along with a mountain of listener mail, are the items up for chatter on episode 124 of the Pocketnow Weekly. This is a once-a-week podcast where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology. That's smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and beyond. All that stuff you wished you had when you were a kid, if you were me. From Boston, Massachusetts, where the first snow of the season is making me sluggish beyond reason, I'm your host, Michael Fisher. I'm joined by a man who just needs a flashlight on his phone to keep him happy, Chief News Editor Stephen Schenk. Hello.
Hey. I feel Rithvik didn't quite frame that correctly. It's not that flashlight is the best thing about Android 5.0. It's the only good thing about it.
So you do read tweets from time to time. And by a man who likes to aggravate brands on Twitter, just as I'm trying to court them, our Windy City Windows Phone fanatic, contributing editor Adam Dowd. Hey, man.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no.
Gentlemen, the time is precisely 2:05 p.m. Good afternoon. Listen, this special listener mail-driven episode of the Pocketnow Weekly is brought to you by Squarespace. If you're planning on building a website of your own, help us out by checking them out. If you don't know what Squarespace is, it's simple. Squarespace makes it fast and easy to build your own professional website, portfolio, and online store. Easy is the key word. Everything you need to build a great-looking website is there. And because it's a modern company, your site also gets mobile responsive design, meaning it looks great on desktops and mobile devices alike. Even better, everything you need to build it is included in a bundle of simple drag-and-drop tools built right into Squarespace. And finally, if you've been listening for a while now, you know my favorite part. You get 24/7 customer support based in Dublin, Portland, and New York City.
New York City?
That's pretty cool.
I was totally going to drop that New York City thing, but no one's done it yet. So.
Yeah, but everyone's going to, hey. Listen, plans start at $8 a month and include a free domain name for those who sign up for a year. If you want rocketnow.net, I think it's still up. And check this out. Pocketnow Weekly listeners get a free trial, no credit card required, and 10% off your first purchase. That's also pretty cool. You got to check them out, folks. Visit squarespace.com/pocketnow and enter offer code POCKETNOW at checkout. Squarespace, better websites for all. Stephen, why don't you tell everyone what we want them to do if they're watching the show live?
This is going to be a special listener mail-focused episode of the Pocketnow Weekly, and while that means we'll be answering a lot of questions that you've emailed to us in the past, we don't just want to cover those old things, we also want to know what's on your mind now. So if you're listening live in Google Hangouts, head on over to the Q&A tab there, submit your questions you want us to answer on the air, vote up other readers' comments, and we will, the listeners' comments, and we will answer the best and most voted upon ones. Got something to say? Sound off, and maybe you'll hear your question answered on the air.
Dowd, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they should send listener mail if they want us to read it in the future?
Listener mail should be sent to podcast@pocketnow.com. Spelled like it sounds. It's rather easy.
Indeed.
Right.
And you did get it right, Dowd.
Yes.
You did. An important detail. Your listener mail may be featured on a future episode of the Weekly. That's why you're writing us. But we say that just so that you know to sign your name the way you want it read on the air. Sometimes people write in and they have like a sensitive job. They're like, I don't want people to know I'm asking this question. So just sign, with your initials or your, your call sign if you're a fighter pilot.
Yeah,
fighter
and we prefer phonetic spellings, by the way.
We have like something like, I don't know how many listeners we have. We have plenty. But if there are any fighter pilots, I would like to hear from them. It doesn't
Roger.
matter. Yep, thank you. And if you're watching this after the broadcast, folks, or if you're listening to this after the broadcast or watching it on YouTube, check the description below. See if there's a link to the high-quality podcast, and do us a favor. Leave us a review wherever podcast reviews are left. That's enough of me talking about nonsense. Jules Wong, who has very, very cheekily dropped some Polar Seltzer bottles in as the background today, and God, it just makes me so thirsty, and it makes me want to remind everyone that I'm enjoying some blackberry bergamot right after my coffee is finished on this show. The reason I have two drinks is because this is going to be a long-ass frickin' podcast, so let's get through the news first. Let's ask Jules to sound that special news annunciator. listen up, Steven. You're going to have to carry us on this one because I don't know much about this Battlestar Galactica phone, but I want to know a lot of it.
Can you tell us? Good thing I stretched out first.
Please.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. Well, we know a healthy amount.
Well, I jumped the gun. We have to let everyone know that your holiday tech stuff is up.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. We have a pair of guides up right now. One of them is just a general list of products to be on the lookout for this holiday season. Phones, tablets, wearables, all the things that the people you love want, and the things that you wish the people you love would be giving you. Go to our holiday shopping guide to get some suggestions on what to be looking for. If it's deals in particular you have your eye on, and with Black Friday just days away, who doesn't, we have our Black Friday roundup with some of the best values from manufacturers themselves, at the various carriers, and at all the big box retailers, as well as a few online ones. We'll be adding deals to that throughout the week as new ones come to our attention, and be sure to check back in with us. I believe over the weekend we'll be having an amendment to that coming up with all the Cyber Monday goodness, so keep an eye on that.
I'm really sorry in advance, guys. I have the giggles on the show, and it's sort of like I just sort of naturally have the giggles today. But Jules is also yelling at me in the chat to stay on the freaking rundown, and I don't know. I'm just going to be laughing all
giggles and bubbly water.
I'm actually glad you clarified that. I thought you were laughing at my camera with the.
I'm also laughing at your camera, struggling to deal with the fact that you've positioned the brightest light you have directly behind your head.
Well, the sun tends to do that.
The 3/4 from below perspective is an interesting cinematographic choice, but we'll go with it.
Got a laptop on my desk. What do you want?
Dowd comes on the show like once every 6 months, and we just pick on him. I'm sorry, Dowd. I'm really glad you're here.
That's how I roll.
Stephen, I was even further off. Apparently, there's something else to talk about before we talk about the Battlestar phone, which is the Fire phone's new price tag. Hugely important.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's still a Fire phone, but.
God, that's so mean.
Oh, man.
I'm honestly a little tempted by this. So what is it? The 32 gigabyte Fire phone is $200 off contract. Amazon's
crazy.
Getting aggressive with the pricing since, I guess, late summer. We started seeing it go free on contract. But I was saying then what it needs to do is address the on-contract or off-contract pricing, compete with the Nexus, the budget price models, because frankly, no one's really clamoring for this thing. If you want to make it attractive, you're going to have to make it attractive in the, checkbook department here.
Touchpad, excuse me.
I don't know if it's enough, but
I don't think it is enough. I think they could have really made a crater with this thing if they'd done this initially. And I've said this a couple times. But
yeah, I don't think it's the pricing that matters now. It's the fact this didn't happen 4 months ago.
And
yeah, but you know what? I mean, when you really stop and think about it, it's $200 with a year of Prime, so it's a $100 phone.
Oh,
this is touchpad pricing.
I forgot about
this.
Prime.
A very good point. And we should also keep in mind that this is most certainly a loss for Amazon. Those 4 cameras that enable the 3D functionality, those bumped up the price quite a bit from the reports we saw around release time, and I don't remember what the bill of materials is on this thing, but it's they're losing money on these at $199 a pop. But I really think they should have done this to begin with, because that would have been a positive storm of headlines right at the top, rather than simply just a furious hurricane of negativity that sort of instantly put this thing into the basement. And I think that's sad because I like the phone.
It forced Amazon to be on the defensive right from the beginning.
If you do this initially, you get a foot in the door for future generations of Fire phone users.
Yeah, so, and you know what? We're not saying anything new here. Amazon itself, in an interview, said that they got the price wrong. So I don't want to pile on them. This is not a negativity thing. This is just to say, if you want a Fire phone at $199 off contract, it's a great deal. Go get it, please.
I've been thinking about hooking my mom up with her first smartphone. I'm going to go for Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm going to bring her an old Nexus 4 with factory image on it, just for her to play around with on her home's Wi-Fi to get a feel for what smartphones are like. Because she's having a lot of trouble purchasing one. But this Amazon might be a good deal. It's an ecosystem she's at least sort of familiar with. I mean, if it gives her, she can use a Firefly and buy things in stores, it's not a bad idea. I don't know. Is it still AT&T locked? Do we know?
Close it or get out.
Well,
it's get out.
Dad's kicking out his what? Your pet or your offspring?
Offspring.
I
was muted when I did that, right?
That was very nice. Is it still locked to AT&T, Stephen?
Well,
I believe.
No, it said it was unlocked.
It says unlocked at $199.
It says Amazon Fire Phone 32 gigabyte unlocked GSM. And down at the bottom, U.S. compatibility, all GSM networks, including AT&T, T-Mobile, and more, not compatible with CDMA networks such as Verizon and Sprint. Details apply. No purchase
Well, I guess that answers that. And Stephen, that's great news. We're going to come back, Stephen, to your point about recommending this to a new smartphone buyer in the listener mail, because that's the first mail that kicks us off. It's from my friend Seti. So we'll talk about this again.
Nepotism.
Please tell me about this Battlestar Galactica phone. I can't wait anymore. Are you telling me they cut corners? Come on, man. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so this is a couple smartphones and a tablet coming from this German manufacturer who I don't believe we've ever heard anything from. This company called
Lindoff.
Lindoff, yeah, has made this phone that looks a little bit like, we saw a Motorola drop a couple models like this a few years back. It had these cut-off corners, kind of a stretched-out octagon look. I always make Battlestar Galactica references. Yeah, the photon. Yeah. And also the one tablet, one of the Zooms kind of looked like this.
Okay, all right, word.
But, the specs on this are decent. It's a 5-inch 1080p. But some of the cool things they're doing are these overclocking. Like, it's going to have 3 gigs of RAM on its own, pretty good. But the company's saying this is going to be like hyper speed RAM. I haven't seen an actual clock speed, but they're driving this higher than it should be. I mean, this could appeal to the same people who overclock their computers, case modders and all of them. And it's also got an interesting setup with the data. We've never seen something like this. It has 2 physically distinct storage chips for its data. So there's a 64 gigabyte regular old flash, and you can put your music, movies on here. But it's also got a 16 gigabyte flash chip that's supposed to be just for application storage. And this is a higher speed component, so you get better bandwidth and I guess more responsive apps. This sounds really good on paper. I'm a little I don't want to. I guess I'm looking at this from a cynical outlook, and I'm worrying that maybe this is like a regular. The 16 gigabyte isn't special. Maybe it's a regular NAND, and the 64 gigabyte one is just like a permanent micro SD card.
Oh, that sounds like feasible. That sounds like that.
Yeah, that's how I would do this. But
how do you choose where? Like when you're installing, it's hard enough to install stuff to use micro SD in Android. To install apps in micro SDs. How are you going to do that with this?
I don't know, but the company's got its own UI on top of Android 5.0, so they may have baked in some directory choosing prompt stuff.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it looks like Windows Phone. But is this AOSP, or does this have the Google, like the whole Google suite?
The whole Google services? I'm not sure. I know that came up.
That's going to be a freaking deal breaker for me.
That's important.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Can I tell you what my other deal breaker would be?
If it has a MediaTek SoC. Because they're not saying whose it is.
I didn't even see that. Oh, that's sad.
I don't know.
Well, if it does. Far more shallow is this branding. The Lindoff branding is this giant cursive thing.
It's elegant, but it's kind of in your face too.
It looks like it should be on like the face of a grandfather clock, not on my smartphone.
It looks stupid thin though. I didn't get the measurement, but my God.
It sure does look thin, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't understand the measurement either. Anyway, when is this going to be out, Stephen? When can I buy one?
First quarter next year, and they gave a price in US dollars, so that has me optimistic we might see some action over here.
That could be really hot. I like this idea of an 80 gig integrated smartphone.
Yeah, and there's also supposed to be like a bigger one that's 128 plus 16 for 144 total.
Yeah, and it's not like we haven't seen that before. I mean, we see iPhones go up to 128 and stuff, but it's cool to see it on the Android side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We've got a pancake flipping camera. Is that what's next? Yeah. What is the deal with this? This looks like a deployable death ray dish coming off the top of something.
We've been giving so much credit to manufacturers who are doing good things with the cameras on their phones because really it's one of the few ways you can stay competitive is having a really standout imaging experience. And so we're awarding our praise to manufacturers who give their phones big sensors, nice lenses and things. But now there's some guys who are just doing things that I can't tell if they're being weird for the sake of being weird or if these are actually valuable improvements. Oppo, I can see what they're doing with the N3 and that rotating camera on there, but these guys, so this manufacturer is another one that you probably never heard of before, Doov. It has the Nike V1, and this guy's got Doov, D-O-O-V.
Oh, Duve. I thought you said
Dude.
dude. I want a smartphone from Dude.
The Duderino, if
No
you're
one else
not
cares.
into the
No
whole
one else
brevity
cares. It's
thing.
lame. 1 out of 10 would not joke again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. This guy, nothing real remarkable. Another MediaTek phone, 720p 5-inch panel, but this weird camera on the back, which is like a big satellite dish of a thing that can either, when it's the rear camera, it's sitting flush against the phone's back, but it's also the front camera, and it sort of swings out, hinged at the top of the handset, up and over. So it's just kind of hanging out there above the phone, ready to take selfies of you. Then you just swing it on around back when you're not using it. This looks like it's just begging to be broken. I can't. Anytime something's sticking out from the phone, I get super nervous, and this is no exception.
I love that there's optical image stabilization in the thing, though. Like, they've managed to make this deployable disc still have a really appealing
it's
mechanical
relatively
component.
thin, but it's got that. It's got sapphire lensing. It's got a dual color LED flash there. It looks like it has some decent hardware in the camera. It's just it's gonna break off. I'm gonna drop it or sit on it or.
Maybe you said this, but I don't know if you did. Do you have to do this with your hand, or can you press a button to deploy it?
Almost certainly with your hand. I mean, I'm just assuming this from a engineering standpoint. Yes, I guess they could make it so it pops up automatically.
Sure,
but
we've talked about those piezoelectric hinge deployers before. They could easily do this.
The solenoid thing, I can't see them doing that though.
RAM.
There's been no image of this thing that I've seen from the back with it closed, and given the thickness of it, and if it wants to sit anything near flush, I can't imagine there's much room for other closure hardware in there. But prove me wrong.
I'm just, I wrote an editorial actually last week about how I love crazy phones, but I'm just wondering if this is even crazier than I would be able to deal with.
This is you need your safe word.
I mean, on the one hand, it's just like all the other phones that I was referencing in that piece. It's really creative, but I don't know. It seems so stupid, but creative.
But it makes sense. I guess it makes more sense than something like the Desire Eye, where you have two 13-megapixel cameras that are essentially identical on front and back. Like that allows for a more conventional form factor. Yes.
But does this? I mean, if saving space, I guess it makes sense doing it this way, but.
Well, my point is that the Desire Eye, for all its innovation, to me, is just like, okay, well, we have another friggin' rectangular whatever. This, this is something new. I mean, this is in the rundown for the same reason the Battlestar Galactica phone is in the rundown for the same reason we're talking smartwatches, and not really talking about Apple hitting this $700 million market cap or whatever. Because, these are the things that are interesting to me, because it's companies that are out there trying something different. And 90% of the time, they're not going to work in the long term, but I just like to see this.
Yeah.
I mean, are we moving towards a time when camera dangle is part of our vernacular?
Camera dangle?
Camera dangle. Oh, watch it, Billy, your camera's dangling.
Oh.
I don't know, I'm just...
Your flap's open.
Yeah, that thing's got to get loose over time, I would think.
Well, but that was always the argument back in the day between clamshell phones and and brick phones, candy bar phones. It's like, oh man, you're just introducing another point of failure, like engineering, and I don't know. I saw some clamshell phones busted in half, yeah, but not as many as all the FUD suggested.
This is true.
Yeah, I'm not going to get one of these. I think it's too friggin' weird, Dowda. Your point is well taken. I just like talking about it. Let's talk about smartwatches, because some people enjoy suing, and some people also don't like to see their intellectual property appropriated without their permission.
Yeah, surprise.
So two sides of this coin. Yeah, I don't think this is unreasonable. What's happening, Stephen?
So what's going on is that obviously watch faces, alternate watch faces for smartwatches, particularly Android Wear, are very, very popular, and there's all sorts of people developing interesting ones. Michael's shown off plenty of these on his videos. There's one right now with Dow. What do you got there?
That's a TechBeard logo. It's a custom watch face I did for the Moto 360.
Custom watch faces.
Awesome.
That's fine. You go with a new design. The problem is that these people who are copying designs from existing watches, they're trying to make a smartwatch look like maybe a Rolex or an Omega, another luxury brand. And I can see why that's really appealing to users, because you have something on your wrist that costs $300. It's not a $15,000 watch, but if it looks a little bit like it, then maybe that's cool. The problem is some of these are a little too close to the real things. The problems are when people designing these are not just copying the style of these watches, but also maybe copying company logos, if not the names themselves, or they're sharing these with the file, and they're calling this the Rolex look. And that's attracting the ire of these watch designers' lawyers, and they are sending out some takedown notices to the repositories hosting these watch faces. So you might be a little more struggle ahead of you if this is something you're looking for, because apparently they're responding to the notices quite quickly. These are being taken down. But I kind of have a feeling that we're just going to see the people designing these fire back with ones that are a little more clearly knockoffs, that are they have the same style, but they lack those, like a Rolex watch without the little crown, without the Rolex name. I think they could get away with that.
That's what's been happening. There's a very clear analog to the whole CBS dispute with anytime somebody makes a Star Trek thing on Android, like a custom watch face or a custom theme on Themer, they would make a bunch of Star Trek ones and they were really cool looking, and then CBS Home Entertainment would come along and be like, we own that and you're not allowed to do that. Don't worry, in 2 years we'll come out with something that's half as good and will cost $4 and then you can have it. So
now,
I
that's
wonder.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I wonder if some of these brands are considering at all going for releasing actual sanctioned bases,
would not
right?
be surprised. This is just being negative here. I'm sure I'm guessing they wouldn't just release them en masse to the watch face repositories out there, but I can see them like partnering with. LG has done designer things in the past. We saw the LG Jill Salander smartphone on Windows Phone 7. I can see them maybe releasing like a branded version of the G Watch that has these things like built into the ROM. You can see, I don't know what brand they would partner with, but that I could see happening. I'm not sure they would be released as just software, but it seems like a bigger buck you can get with a full-on partner job. I don't know. No skin off my back. There's plenty of other non-infringing watch faces out there.
Right. Yeah, like this one. Oh, it turned off. Darn it.
No,
that's the problem with anytime you're trying to film Android Wear, it like shuts down instantly. Yeah, that custom Pocketnow watch face is nice. Did you send that to me, Dad?
Not yet.
Can you drop me the link to that so I can put it in the show notes if anybody wants a podcast Android Wear watch face?
Yeah, I'll put it on Instagram too.
Thanks, bruh. Yeah, please do. We have one other lawsuit to talk about, and by the way, we're going to come back to the smartwatch issue. That's why I'm kind of skipping ahead, because somebody in the listener mail wrote a very timely letter about this very issue, so we're going to come back to it. Samsung is getting sued over using the word milk.
Yeah. Samsung has this milk media thing that I guess some people use. It's Samsung's, because Samsung has its own. It's been trying to push its own sub-ecosystem on its phones with Samsung App Stores, Samsung Media stuff. Samsung Milk has been its streaming entertainment system, hasn't it? Yeah, Milk Video, Milk Music. And now there's another company out there, Milk Studios, who doesn't want Samsung using its name like this, firing off a lawsuit. Who will win? I don't know. I'm guessing Samsung will throw a lot of money at them at some point if the case isn't thrown out earlier. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this.
This is a media company. Milk stands at the crossroads of the fashion, music, photography, and film world. What possible likelihood of confusion is there between this and a crappy app? I don't know if it's crappy, but an app that does not stand a very strong chance of standing out, given Samsung's track record. With
the media thing, they're in the same ballpark that you can get a judge to pay attention to this. So this might have some legs to it.
I think that I think they could, Stephen. I think you're right. I think there is a settlement in the future here, but I don't think these guys would win in a lawsuit. I don't see enough.
It's a question of how much trouble.
There's confusion, but that's what I want to know about. Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? That's the question.
Indeed.
No one in the Q&A. Nobody's talking about milk in the Q&A. What are people talking about in the Q&A?
That's a good cue.
No.
I'll tell you. CC Master 86 writes in and says, as more and more people begin to prefer the unaltered version of Android with very stylized releases like Lollipop, citation needed, do you think Google is trying to drive the smartphone market away from manufacturer versions and into its own more controllable market? I think this is a good question, and I think Google's sort of been going this way for years. This isn't necessarily a new thing with Lollipop, even though it's much more visible with Lollipop.
It's doing something different now, though. Like we've seen with both Android One and the OEM customizations on the Nexus 6, it's giving OEMs an avenue to add their own a little bit of flavor while keeping things mostly stock. And I don't think that Google will try to push everyone in this direction now. The days of TouchWiz and Sense are far from over. But in at least making it possible to keep a pretty much stock phone with a little bit of, oh, well, this is a Samsung device, then maybe they're just trying to, kind of gently nudge the manufacturers in that direction. See how people respond to it.
I don't know. I always get really worried about a future world where all these manufacturers will only be able to differentiate based on hardware. Like in Windows Phone, we've had that problem.
Would that be so bad, though?
Yes, I think it would, because...
Why?
I love hardware.
If I buy a Lenovo laptop, I don't want Windows to look differently than it does on a Dell laptop.
Right, but that's a laptop. Like, it would be my argument that is, even though a laptop is much more capable than a smartphone, it's somehow inherently a less personal device, which is why I'm more into mobile than anything else, because it's like, these are the things that we use most often today, are smartphones, because you carry them with you everywhere. And when you grow used to the way a certain manufacturer builds its software, you grow to like it. And as an example, with Android 5.0 Lollipop has done some really stupid things with volume control and notification control, in my opinion. So I look forward to trying out the next skinned version of Android from HTC or Samsung or Sony or whoever, just so that I can fix that. And if they can't fix it, then I'll do it myself. But like I like the notion that out there in the market there will be a manufacturer skin that's like, oh, this does this thing better than stock Android, so you might want to consider this. I like that choice spanning hardware and software, not just sticking with hardware. I mean, Dowd, you know what I'm talking about, right? You get a Windows Phone and it's almost like your initial love affair with the hardware ends the moment you turn it on, because as much as you might love Windows Phone is Windows Phone, right?
That's true. I mean, I honestly don't have a real strong opinion on this either way. It's just, as long as the darn thing works, I'm pretty good with it. I really don't care how it works. Although, that being said, some of the skinned operating systems that I have used do things better than stock Android, and so those are the experiences that I would miss in a world where stock Android is everywhere. But that being said, it's not like it was a major deal breaker in my opinion, because I did, after all, buy a Nexus 5. So, I mean, it's just I find it hard to have a really strong opinion about this, just because the darn thing works. Who really cares how?
What a oddly pragmatic opinion for a tech nerd. What's up,
I am
Dad?
an oddly pragmatic person.
No, your
just
point is
odd.
taken.
Sorry, hang on.
I understand. Listen, we have 2 points about Apple hitting that $700 million market cap. Am I getting that figure right, Stephen?
Is it million or billion?
Is it? Yeah. Are we? It's billion, isn't it?
According to one question
sound.
Q&A, it's billion, and the other one, it's millions.
It's billion. It's billion.
Yeah.
Billion.
And this was not a conscious choice, as I intimated before. I actually just forgot to throw this into the rundown, but whatever. I like the way this question is phrased. We'll read both of them. Dante Sullivan writes, does Apple hitting 700 billion market cap finally prove that being the best at marketing means more than making the best product? I'd say HTC makes equally great products, but are nowhere. No, I don't think that. I don't think that is on point. I think Mike L. Beard has a more close approximation of the truth. With Apple hitting that 700 billion, do you think other companies would or could benefit from doing the same thing, as far as lowering their product base and focusing on a few main devices and doing them really well? But this dovetails nicely with Dante's question about, well, look at HTC. They're essentially doing the same thing, aren't they?
That's what HTC did. They really pulled back in the reins. I mean, it's really funny, because you look at the two most popular smartphone companies in the world, and one of them, which is Apple, which has 5 products, and the other one is Samsung, which released 5 products since we started this podcast. So
on the mobile side, yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I mean, which one works? Is the middle ground the best place to be? I'm starting to look like not so much.
And
I don't think HTC's really done that, though. I mean, on the flagship side, yeah, but how many Desire phones came out this year?
They did it, and then they reversed themselves. They said, listen, we released way too much. We're going to release not a whole lot. And then they were like, last year we only released a few phones. We're going to do a little bit more. So I think they're trying to find that sweet spot, but other brands are doing the same thing. Samsung has announced they're going to pull back on their portfolio. Sony,
I think Sony
has announced
too,
the same thing. Right. So, yeah, I think we see companies struggling to find some middle ground that works. In an ecosystem, Android, that's in some ways getting a lot closer to the iOS ecosystem, which was brought up before. So all those are major issues we could talk about for hours, but I think what we have to talk about for hours instead is listener mail.
Listener mail.
Listener mail. Oh, we have to read these things now.
Usher us into listener mail with the sound cue we love so much. Thank you very much.
I heard a bong bong. Okay.
It was there. It was there. You and I have been trained to recognize this.
Darn right.
An absurdly dense smorgasbord of listener mail. Some of it dates back to the pre-IFA days, everyone. Wow. Whether it's thoughts on the Nexus 9, questions on the future of the wearable, rants about keyboard lag, or questions about what phone to buy your mother for the holidays. You'll find it in our super dense block of reader feedback. This is going to be intense. I want everyone to hydrate. I want everyone to stretch out their vocal instruments. And I want listeners to understand that this podcast is going to have to see you through a pretty long holiday week. So, if you need to parcel this up, guys, do it. There's a pause button there, all right? It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Good. And by the way, we're not doing this in the order that it's listed, but I do want to start with Seti, because she is my friend, and she wrote in. And
we have an order,
by the way.
Hang on.
Thank you, Jules, for bringing back my giggle fit, because Jules is just reacting angrily, and rightly so, to my announcement that we're not going in order. Listen, we'll go as in order as we possibly can, Jules, I promise you. And one of the challenges to doing a show like this is that there's so much mail in the queue that you have to search for it by search term, by the person who wrote in.
I was going to say, all of my emails are Pocketnow Weekly. So.
Yeah, right, exactly. So use the magnifying glass to your benefit, and we'll start out with my friend Seti Lisette. Hey, buddy, she writes, holiday shopping has begun, and I'm hoping you might be able to point me in the direction of a starter Android for my mom. She's currently using what I think is one of the only functional flip phones left in the world, and in need of an upgrade. Steven, you're in a similar situation.
Yep.
She's not a fan of the Apple UI, so I'm hoping Android has an option for her. Budget is pretty flexible. I'd rather not go crazy in case she hates it and or breaks it. As I said before, she's not the most delicate of creatures. However, I'm happy to drop some cash if it's going to make her happy.
Thanks, Mom.
Listen, guys, Seti didn't write in with this important detail, and this is crucial. Her mom's on Verizon.
Yeah, my mom's got that problem too.
God, it just instantly, it just confines you to a very...
Well, my answer was get off the contract, which is
right.
To me too. But
yeah, so if there's an option to do that, Seti, if you've been waiting for an excuse to jump carriers, but I know when I'm shopping for my parents are not on the best carrier for their area, but they're very...
Sprint?
Yeah. So they're very reluctant to switch off because it's what works for them, and that's fine. So let's assume that we have to confine ourselves to Verizon, okay?
Well, there's still some good options there. In fact, one I had in mind fits in with this Verizon thing, the Moto X.
Indeed. Yeah. And Moto X is about to get a hell of a Black Friday deal on Verizon, is that right? Is it 1 cent on a contract, I believe? It's like they took it all the way down to the point where I thought they were talking about last year's Moto X.
That's last year's. Wait,
that's not last year's? If you follow the link that they sent, it goes to the new Moto X. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So Seti, I mean, that was the first thing that leapt to my mind. But so the Moto X is the phone that I carry personally. It's you can customize it, make it leather on the back, wood on the back, polycarbonate, whatever. You can choose it from a variety of colors. Okay. And it also has some features that not every Android phone has. Like you can talk to it from across the room. It's got a display that wakes up automatically when you take it out of your pocket or if you just wave at it. And it works very well. The only downsides are the camera is not the finest and the battery life is not the greatest.
But the camera's going to be better than whatever her flip phone has, so it's still an upgrade.
No question. No question.
I don't know about the battery.
I don't know what Mom's like. I don't know if she necessarily has to go. And see, my easy answer for this is it kind of depends on who you are. If you're an uber geek customizable person, then go Android. If you're just want the darn thing to work, go iOS. And if you want something in the middle, go with Windows Phone. problem is that Windows Phone really hasn't had a respectable offering that I could really recommend people buy for mom these days. I mean, the only thing on Verizon would be like the Icon, maybe, which I mean is what 6-8 months old at this point.
Yeah,
so
like May or something.
it's kind of hard to make that argument. But I mean, it does have.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
We should make that point, Adam, that Windows ecosystem shouldn't be avoided. You know, if your mom owns a PC and it's a relatively modern one, then that's going to be, something that's at least familiar.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, and especially if you're coming from a flip phone, it's not like you have app expectations. So,
right.
If you can't get the Google services that you're looking for, it's not really that big of a deal. But at the same time, there's the age of the hardware that's a concern too.
She does confine this in her mail to Android. So I mean, while I'm going to try not to. I share your impulse, Adam. Actually, one of my first thoughts ran to like the Lumia 635 or something really cheap, but that still performs fairly well. But because it's Verizon, we have this confined selection, and also she said Android. We don't have all that much time. And so I was thinking, yeah, Steven?
No matter what platform you're thinking of, if you're buying this for a parent, and I know this is making some broad generalizations, but suggest they get a platform you're familiar with because you're going to be fielding a lot of tech support questions.
Right.
True.
Sadly, I know that City carries an iPhone, so she's not going to, But so with all that in mind, I've spent some time the last few days with the Nexus 6, which is not what I'm recommending. But I've also been comparing it with the Nexus 5, and that comparison will go live sometime this week. And the Nexus 5 is available for Verizon. Right?
Is it?
Isn't it?
I think so.
Somebody have one?
I thought it was Sprint. Or am I thinking previous gen?
Oh, man, this is going to blow a hole in my whole thing. Why didn't I look at this?
Oh, man.
People have gotten the Nexus 5 to work on Verizon.
Don't think so.
No, it totally does not. Never mind. The Moto X is going to be the way I go here. They're also having a deal on the Sony Xperia Z3. Right? So if the Moto X does not light your fire, or you don't think it'll light your mom's fire, you might want to go with the Sony Xperia Z3V, which has gotten some pretty nice reviews, as I recall. I think Tony liked the Z3 itself. The V is just the Verizon variant, but as we said, it's got some stylistic differences. But, if your mom is a fan of a glass sandwich construction, something really thin and really sleek looking, that's something to consider. And it's got to have a better camera than the Moto X. And it's waterproof. So you're saying your mom's not a delicate creature. This won't survive drops as well because it's all glass, but it will go for a dip in the pool.
When mom goes surfing, she can take her phone with her.
Right. So I think we're going to land between those two options, unless you guys have any other suggestions.
I was going to say Galaxy Alpha before the Verizon thing came out, but
right. That's the thing. If you're on any carrier but Verizon and Sprint, there are so many choices. So many more choices, but Verizon, it just sort of confines you there. But that's the thing. Oh, well. I hope those two suggestions help you out, and please let me know if they don't, because I will throw more at you. Let's move on to Ed Carden's email, if we can find that very quickly. Ed, I think, wrote in with a question that only Joe Levi can answer. I didn't justify that Ghost of Joe Levi joke in the intro, did I?
Oh, no. It's in Nexus. Okay.
Yeah, so Joe Levi was supposed to be on the Pocketnow Weekly today. It has been way too long since he's been on the show. But unfortunately, Joe's a very busy guy. We don't always schedules don't line up. He's too popular. Everyone wants his beard to be on their show. I hope he still has that excellent beard. I haven't watched a Joe video in a minute. So Joe couldn't join us, but so many people write in with questions specifically for Joe that only Joe can answer. So here's one. Ed Carden writes in about keyboard lag, another friend of mine. I've been using the Verizon HTC One M8 as my daily driver since June, and in most cases it's still a smooth, snappy, and lag-free experience. However, I do experience moments of slowdown and unresponsiveness while typing from time to time, and I'm wondering if you have any tips to eliminate or at least cut down on this. My keyboard app of choice is SwiftKey, and I'd prefer to stay unrooted at the moment, but any tips you have would be appreciated. Does either of you guys want to read Joe's response? Because Joe took the time to draft some replies for us to read.
I'll take that guy.
Yeah, go for it.
Joe
Nice.
responds, keyboard apps are amazing things. They can build personal dictionaries based on how you talk. They have to be multilingual by nature. They have to adapt for your misspellings, and they have to be predictive these days. Based on what you've already written, the app has a good idea of what you're going to write next and can provide those hints for you to speed up your typing or correct your typos or both. Doing all of that isn't a simple task, though, and it's going to tax the processor. So you've got other stuff running in the background, it's anything like app updates or your social media programs running. You may be flooding your available CPU, trying to ask it to do just too much at once. As for if there's a fix, well, there's not much that you, the end user, can do besides dumbing down your keyboard, i.e. not having it pull all this weight. It's really up to your device's manufacturer to prioritize keyboard instructions over other things so that it doesn't get bogged down when you're using it in the foreground. Some OEMs do this better than others, and some keyboard apps themselves are less prone to keyboard lag. If you keep all your apps up to date and set your social media to be syncing less frequently, cutting down on those background tasks, that might help. If they don't, well, at least you're not alone with these frustrations. Says Joe.
Well, nicely read. Nicely read, and Joe, I agree. And Ed, thank you for writing in with that question, because I have had that issue on several Android phones. The older they get, the more that keyboard seems to bog down. And one of the big offenders was the first-gen Moto X, I must say. So, for all the praise we lavish upon Motorola, it's important to remember that they are not flawless any more than anybody else is. So hopefully that answer was useful to you, Ed. Let us know if it was or was not. And I think Dowd has got the next one, because this is sort of a special piece of listener mail. This was a sort of editorial that was submitted.
Yeah, it was kind of like a TLDR, if you will. Trevor, I'm going to say Ries.
If it were German proper, it would be Rise, but I think we're going to go with Ries.
Oh, Trevor Rice. Anyway, so he wrote into us with kind of a mini editorial talking about how he was on Android for a while, and I'm just going to summarize, Trevor. Hope you don't mind. He was on Android for a while, and he's just coming back to Windows Phone. And there's one thing that Android does that he really wants Windows Phone to do, and so do I, which is why I'm handling this. And that is the concept of deep linking. And or what he calls deep linking. I'm not sure if that's the exact technical term for it, but sure, why not? What that means is when I'm reading an email and I'm looking at the latest geocache you have published, and I tap on the link that links to the geocache, on Windows Phone it opens up in a browser, and it shows me the page, and yeah, that's fine. But when I'm on Android and I'm reading the same email and I tap on the link for the geocache, Android says, okay, well, this is a web page, but it's a web page for a geocache. So you have a geocache app on here. Do you just want to open this in the geocache app? And I say, duh. And it says, done. And it opens it up. And then everybody's happy. So what Trevor wants is the Windows Phone to have that ability to open up these links within emails, or really just cross-linking from app to app. He wants that instead of just defaulting to the web browser all the time, which is not always going to be the best experience, he wants Windows Phone to adopt this Android type of model of allowing you to configure what opens what. And I'm totally on board. I absolutely want that as well. What do you guys think about that?
I'm shaking my head. URLs should always open in the browser, I say as I'm losing my voice. Why would it even open in the app? Is it not an HTTP? Is it another string at the beginning there?
I'm sure it's an I don't even know how Android knows that
the system
web pages open in the browser.
When the system recognizes that you have an app installed that can handle it, I think it's really handy for it to say, hey, you have an app that'll probably do this better. Do you want to do this? Like when I click on a Twitter URL somewhere. It's like,
I don't like that at all.
Oh, yeah, and then from the app I can follow whatever. If it opens at twitter.com and it prefers desktop, which I have, I think, Chrome set to do, then it's annoying. I got to navigate this whole desktop page.
That's how the internet should work.
No,
No.
Stephen, I'm already off your lawn. I don't know what more you want from me. Just trying to exist in this top-security world.
Not only am I off your lawn, I already mowed it for you.
Yeah, Stephen, why don't you have a Windows phone? It seems like you would be happiest on Microsoft's platform.
Right?
This is how, I don't have this problem or Android works how I want it to. I click the link, it opens it directly in the browser. I don't know what's...
But once upon a time, you had to tell it to open in the browser. And so
every time I click,
that's great.
Every time I click a link, Android prompts me what I want to do with it. That's how I want. I want to make that choice when I tap it.
Every single time?
Default browser set, every single time.
God, why? What's wrong with you?
A lot, clearly.
Oh, man. That's
Speaking
the
of
one
notifications, I just got one and had to deal with it in Lollipop's newfangled way. What were you saying?
Stephen and I were discussing the merits of the always button with open links. And the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to micromanage my phone. I don't want to always have to, oh, you want to open this? How do you want me to do that? When do you want me to do that? You want me to do that now? Do you want me to do that over here? Do you want me to do it over there? Just open the freaking link!
Well, because it's not always going to be the same. Maybe I want to open the link in the web browser. Maybe I do want it to go to the app. This is like one other big complaint about Android. We were talking earlier with that i8 phone with the two file systems. I want to be asked, where do I want to save this info? I don't want it to assume something. Ask me. I have a minute.
Wait, here's Stephen. I believe Chrome amuses me today.
Well, yeah, sometimes I want to open a link in Chrome. Sometimes I want to open it in Firefox. It depends what the link is.
You are a twisted little soul. All right, cool.
You know what? We all have our own preferences, and that's why there are multiple platforms, and that's why, everyone, Android should not be just a monochrome block of just stock. This is why skins are great.
It's not a monolithic system.
Monolithic, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Way to make me feel dumb. Link bubble and tap path. Taylor did a video on these things, which Jules very handily put up for us. And these are things you should look up if you want to more stringently define how your system behaves with links like this. Very, very cool.
That, Taylor's
awesome context, Jules. Thank you. Yeah, a little guest appearance by Taylor. I'm going to pour a little seltzer on. The next piece of listener mail is from VJV, and I included it in the rundown because it blew my mind, dudes. And also because I need you guys to talk me down from this because it's kind of freaking me out. VJ writes in, says, "Hi guys, I just saw Michael's initial impression on the Gear S. That's the Samsung smartwatch readers and listeners and viewers that I'm wearing right now. And hey, Dowd, you see that button on the front of your Blue Yeti? It's got a red light on it. That's a cough button, brother.
That's what I was just pressing.
It didn't work.
Okay, good to know.
We'll
edit that out in post.
This fucking thing on the Gear S, and it's only 1.5 inches smaller than the original iPhone. I want you guys to confirm this for me. Now, this is a 2-inch diagonal display on the Gear S smartwatch. The original iPhone had a 3.5-inch display. Does that math work out?
That's not the number to be looking at, though. It's screen area. And when you're at small screens, when you make the diagonal a little bit bigger, the area is going to change a lot more noticeably than it does when we're moving from, like, a 6 to a 7.5-inch device.
But is the diagonal difference valid? It's 1.5 inches, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, relatively speaking, right, when you increase this by 1.5, you're essentially, quadrupling the area or something. I get that. But, like, I'm just adding 1.5 inches here, and that makes a first-gen iPhone. Like, that sort of blows my mind.
Maybe the more impressive thing is the Gear S has a higher resolution than the first iPhone.
Yes, the things have certainly changed since 2007.
Can I further blow your mind, Michael?
Please. Always open
1 inch is smaller than the Veer.
1 inch? Hold on, it's only what?
1.1 inches. The Veer was 2.6.
Yeah, but the Veer was already a smartwatch without a strap.
True enough. I wish somebody would do that mod. Can we call up Taylor Martin right now and ask him to make that to the next project on mod?
I'm telling you,
to throw
3D printer
smart band on the Veer, and so you can just wear it as well. So anyway, VJ actually had a question here. Do you think we've reached a saturation in smartphone and watch screen size? What is your optimal screen size for all your devices? That last we can't do that list. That'll take too long. But
no, I don't think we have. I think we're seeing more changes with screen size and dimensions than we have in a while now. 4x3 aspects are popping up all over the place on Android, where before it had been like an iPad-only thing. It seems like all the major tablets that we've heard of lately are these 4:3 kind of squarish looking screens. And some other companies have been talking about ones with like a 15:9 aspect ratio. So there's a lot more variety in there. People are playing now with UHD screens, like on that new Qualcomm development tablet. That's nearly a 4K resolution. I think even though that there's this closing of the ranks between the different form factors and the size of screens we see on there, there's more options now than ever.
I want to say, Stephen, you were making a great point there. I also want to apologize to Dowd. I had my cough button set wrong, so when I unsealed my bottle of Polar Seltzer, you heard it.
That's okay. We'll edit it out in post.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Come on. In Jules, I trust.
We have another piece of mail from Sam Ward, but have we covered this adequately? Stephen, I think you said it best for everybody. What?
If we want to weigh in on our optimal screen size or our personal preferences?
Sure. Whatever's circular on my wrist is fine, so you can go as big as you want within reason. So, what's the LG G Watch R is 1.3 inches. The Moto 360 is I think 1.5 or something, or it's 1.5, 1.2. It's, I don't remember. I did the comparison.
1.65? No. Okay. Anyway.
Moto 360 is kind of ideal for me, and the round size round screen at that size. Smartphone rather, I think 5 inches is where I like to stay, and then on the old tablet. If I have a smartphone at 5 inches, I don't want to do a 7-inch tablet, so probably 8 to 8.9 is it for me.
I like my phones relatively petite, maybe a little below 5, 4.7, 4.8, but like my tablets big, 10 inches, 10.5, the bigger the better.
Yeah, maybe 12 inches. Maybe we shouldn't forget the Surface Pro 3. Is Adam going to steal your tablet answer?
12 too.
Oh, no, actually. For me, Moto 360, probably a Lumia 920 or just a scotch bigger. And then tablet, oh god, that's such a hard question. Because I use a Nexus 7 and an iPad on a daily basis, and I can't get a feel of which one I would. If I had to pick one, I can't decide which one I would.
Well,
which one I would go with.
Have a chance to expound on that, because the next question is by Sam Ward, and that's from that's about tablets, and we're going to move to that one. Stephen, I'll ask you to read that one while I say that Jules' submission to this was he likes a phone about the size of the iPhone 4S with substantial bezels. I can't tell if he's being serious or not. But,
bezels. That's a problem with text, isn't it?
It sure is. Loses all the nuance in the chat.
No winky faces.
All right, for Sam Ward, tell us what he says about tablets and what he's asking.
Sam Ward writes to us from the United Kingdom saying, "Hi, Pocketnow team. As always, love the top quality mobile content. Please keep up all the great work. I've read a few rumors of HTC working on a possible Sense tablet for 2015, and as a lover of HTC products, while also being in the market for a tablet, my question to you is whether I should buy the Nexus 9 or wait for HTC to release this Sense tablet possibly next year." I wonder if it will be that different from, software, obviously, it'll have the Sense UI, but I don't know if we can expect much in the hardware department as far as a departure from the Nexus 9.
Oh, I can't agree with you less, Stephen.
No? You think we're going to get something that looks like a big HTC One?
No, I quite possibly, or they could do something completely different. They might even bring back the flyer design language with those humps on left and right when you hold it in landscape, so that it's actually a little comfy. It's comfy. Don't knock it until you've caressed it, as I say regularly. This is the principal thing for me is the hardware difference. Because Sense on a tablet, I don't know. Who knows what that would look like, if that would be any good at all. I don't know. But HTC was confined from everything we know, which is things we've heard and whatever. This is not confirmed, but look at it. Look at the Nexus 9. It's a Nexus 5 that's been blown up. Obviously, Google told them what to do, and they built what Google told them to do.
Can you guys give this thing some buttons that are impossple to use? Oh, yeah, sure. We'll just bury this in as deep as we can.
Can you take Boom Sound, which is done with beautiful machined holes on every other one of your products, and just kind of put them in these slots that collect dust really easily?
Desire Eye does that too, doesn't it?
It does. I was hoping you weren't going to call me out on that, but almost every other smartphone. And if you could make a trampoline back on there, that would be really
I've
good.
already been digging dust out of the speaker grills on my Nexus 9 by licking the tip of a toothpick and tapping it in there to get the individual grains of salt that have fallen in.
We're talking about this is the thing with HTC, right? Because we're talking about the Nexus 9 like it's the biggest piece, and it's not. It's not a POS, but compared to other things HTC can build, compared to what we know it can do, it's not impressive. So I think that's the biggest reason to wait for an HTC tablet, is to see what they can do with their own when they are in charge of their own destiny. What do you think, Adam?
Oh, I was actually going to take the exact opposite stance. If you like the Nexus 9, get it. Don't wait for what might be coming later. So, because you know what, if you let's say you wait for the HTC Sense tablet in March and it gets delayed back until April, and then it actually comes out in April and you don't like it, or you don't like it's crap, or it's great but you don't like it, whatever. Now your other option is a 6-month-old tablet.
I don't know, but I gotta say the Nexus 9 is not worth $400. Wait, if nothing else, to see if the price comes down. I know this is not usual for Nexus models, but
I don't have a Nexus 9, so I can't speak to that. But my opinion is, if you want something and it looks good, just don't wait. Don't wait for what might be coming.
That's refreshing, Dad. I like that. I mean, we say that often. We don't really phrase it that way usually, but because there's always something else coming on the horizon, right?
Right.
I mean, we always say that, but live in the moment.
Yeah.
Push the doctor off the boat.
Tomorrow never dies.
That's a good point.
It's a Bond movie.
License
Never mind.
to
I'm sorry. License.
Yeah. Chris Cox is our next piece of listener mail. Dowd, you're going to read that one. While you look that up, I'm going to tell everyone that my gesticulations on the show, according to the Gear S, mean that I've taken 270 steps since we started the podcast.
Yes.
You don't say.
From that chair.
Want everyone to know.
And
the
this
Gear
is
S
why you buy a
review
smartwatch with GPS.
is still coming at some point, but the
Speaking of which, check out that wearables editorial I wrote last week. Anyway, okay.
Oh wait, Diego is next. Oh no, that's after Chris Cox. Okay, thank you, Jules. You are one step ahead as always. Dowd, hit us.
Chris Cox writes, I currently own the LG G Vista, measuring 152 by 79.3 by 9.1 millimeters.
All the numbers in this.
Okay. And
I demand you read the inch equivalents.
All right. And, okay, 3 point, no, okay. My question is this. Should phones this size make us reconsider how we use the devices? It becomes painfully obvious after a week or two with such a device that many tasks you used to do on one hand on your previous device require two hands on such a big phone. Instead of attempt of some sort of awkward hold or choking up on the device, nice baseball term, should we instead get more comfortable with using it much as we would a tablet, where two-handed use feels more natural? So does behavior dictate device, or does device dictate behavior?
The latter.
Yeah, I think the whole industry is trying to make the latter happen.
There's nothing wrong with using a phone with two hands. I know people are resistant to this, but
bold stance. It's a strong position.
No, I agree with that, but I mean, I think we've also grown up in a society where one-handed cell phone use was so possible that we're used to it now, and so we're behaving in such a way where we have something in our left hand. We're carrying a backpack or we're carrying a bag, and we really want to get this text out. So
this is why you all drop your phones, everyone. Stop using them one-handed.
Okay. at the same time, I think if Steven had his way, we'd have shekels in the backs of these phones, so we could just.
Ooh, and you could punch people with them.
You could. So, I mean, I think. I think device needs to dictate behavior, and if your phone is just too darn big to use it one-handed, if you try, you're probably going to fail unless you have a reachability feature or a Samsung feature that shrinks down, or even, did you know SwiftKey had a one-handed use mode?
No, but that's convenient. I expect that from them. That's a smart feature.
I'm intrigued by this Octagon phone. The UI on there and the pictures they've released, it looks like it has notifications that open from the bottom of the screen.
God, that is so freaking overdue. Like, I mean, that's my point. If you're going to do this, if you're going to make big phones, fine, but make them usable with one hand. And to people who say, Stephen, this is not directed at you personally, but to people who say that you don't need one-handed use on a smartphone, like every time somebody makes that argument, I struggle to envision what that life is like, because I'm not the world's most active. I don't go rock climbing every day and like whatever, but I do stuff in the real world, and I like to multitask. And when I'm doing stuff, I'm usually Have a hand
Okay.
that's doing stuff, whether it's holding a book bag or like moving things around or selecting things on the shelf or waving or doing whatever. And I want a hand free. And I'm sometimes
paranoid.
texting at the same time. I want to take photos at the same time. The amount,
Okay.
Dowd, use that button for the love of shit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
We've been able to, yes.
You can?
We can hear, yes. I think you're not even using. Go into Hangout settings and make sure that it's using the Yeti.
You see the blinkies? You see the blinkies?
Yeah, I see. So Hangouts, it's using your computer mic, brother. Hey, Jules, mark this time code so we can take all this bullshit out of here. Listen, my freaking point is that one-handed use is so important. It's still so important because we grew up with smartphones or dumb phones that wanted to get ever smaller, and as they got ever smaller, you could use them with one hand. In fact,
this is a new paradigm. Phones are big now.
Fine, and if you're going to go big, if you're going to go so big that I have to use it with two hands, fine. But throw a bone to the people who want to use it with one hand, who are doing stuff all the time, and put the notifications where they belong. Throw them at the bottom of the friggin' display. How many times have we been saying this? We've said it time and time again. No one listens. Nobody cares. Who cares? But you know what the best one-handed phone is? A square-shaped phone. That's what Jules Wong says.
That's kind of interesting. Like, rip the screen off a Q10, just get rid of the keyboard, and just have that. It can work from any angle. There's no up. It's just...
It's a circle.
It's a transaction to me. It's a convenience exchange. It's like if you're gonna give us a big screen, that's great. I love a big screen for so many things. It does make the phone experience better. But Samsung has chosen to do it where they're like, okay, we know this is inconvenient, so we're A, going to make it easier for you with one hand, and B, even if it's not that easy, even if you don't use those features, we're going to give you smart, intelligent uses for this larger canvas that sort of make up for it, that make you say, hey, I don't mind that it's sort of cumbersome because it can do so much. When I use the Nexus 6, I feel that less because Google has the capability to bake this stuff into real Android, and it doesn't, or it hasn't yet, and that's frustrating. But this is not dial-F for fail, so I can't talk for 10 minutes, so I'm going to shut up. I want something better than multi-window. Like Android has demonstrated, the Android designers have demonstrated that they are more adept at a lot of software design than some of their OEM partners, and they should be able to figure out a better way of doing multi-window or dual window or a Q-slide or any of that other stuff. And it's not in there. And so, hey, Googs, I mean, I want your genius on this, Ish. Oh, I'm so angry.
You got a little heat up there, Michael.
Now I'm calming down. I'm sorry. It's the Dharma jumpsuit.
In with the love, out with the dive.
Diego's next. Joe, do you want to read
me to get this one?
Oh, Diego.
Or Steven, you want to read this one?
Sure. Diego writes, hi Pocketnow, love the site and the weekly. Your reviews are always a great help, and whenever people don't buy right away, I always recommend your reviews. Well, that's what they're there for.
Nice.
Diego says, I work at Best Buy Mobile, and I completely agree with the whole buy iPhone or buy Samsung thing you talked about. At one point, my manager actually told me to stop talking about other phones, and I had fallen in love with the 2013 Moto X and had been telling everyone to get one. I had a Galaxy S4, and I hated it. And I now have the Droid Turbo and absolutely love this thing, talk it up every day. But I often get turned down even after I show a feature, and the shopper says, wow, that's cool, but just kind of sad. And I also wonder if you have any suggestions as to how to sell smaller phones like the M8 or the Moto X. That sounds like a couple issues in there, kind of one being the management. I know, Michael, you've talked about this a lot as the influence that the carrier or the retailer has on what phones the employees end up selling to people. Right. And then also about just what we're attracted to in phones. If it takes a big phone to seem like it's a substantial product, and we just have this feeling that smaller phones are not as, maybe not powerful, but it's not as interesting as bigger phones.
That's what Diego what Diego was referencing before, by the way, is not us saying like just buy an iPhone, just buy a Samsung. It's exactly the opposite. Right. We've talked about how there's a lot of pressure to sell Samsung or iPhone and everything else. I think there's a barrier to understanding. I think a lot of people in retail, as in any other field, are kind of lazy, and so when you have a portfolio in your store of 30, 40 different products from 8 or 9 different brands. Well, all right, I don't really want to learn all these, so I'm going to learn the ones that sell. And that's further buttressed by the ones that people ask for, and people have been conditioned to ask for, where's the new Galaxy? Where's the new iPhone? Right?
Where's the Sammy?
Yeah, and what's odd about Diego's question is that he incorporates in his question the answer I was going to give, so it's a crappy answer. Diego says he's been carrying the Turbo, and he's enthusiastic about that, and that was the ace in the hole for me when I was in sales.
To let your own enthusiasm come through?
Yeah, not as much that as the buyers would ask in addition, after they asked, okay, where's your new iPhone? Okay, where's your new Galaxy? Or back in the day, it was different brands, but you know what I'm saying. Right. They would ask me, all right, well, what do you carry? Just like they often ask us guys as editors, like, hey, so which one do you carry? What's the best for you? So generally, that's would be a selling point for me, where I'd be like, oh, I carry this because it fits best for me. And 1 out of 2 times they'd be like, you make a good point, and I like that you have hands-on experience with it. I'm going to buy that. So, but it doesn't seem like that's working for Diego. He can't sell people on the Turbo, even though they seem to like the features the Turbo has. So
rough stuff.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? I mean, what's the solution here? How do you, if you are motivated to push other brands because you think they're legitimately a better fit, I mean, how do you do it? Dowd, you're a salesman.
Well, I mean, honestly, if having the darn thing in your pocket doesn't sell it, I don't know what will. I mean, you can show them all the features that you want, but I mean, he even says, after showing them the features and they say, wow, that's cool, all right, cool, where's the iPhone?
Yeah.
It's like, this phone will read your text while you drive. Hey, that's great, where's the iPhone? I think it's just, I think the salesperson on the floor is the last, call it a roadblock, if you will, or the last hurdle in a smartphone buying experience. First you have the TV ads, then you have review sites like us, or maybe vice versa. But I really think once you get to the showroom floor, you pretty much already know what you want to buy, and so I don't think there's really not a magic phrase that's going to alter people's perceptions of that.
I wonder how much that's true. I sort of have I'm just going on assumption here, but I have a feeling that a lot of shoppers don't necessarily come in with a very set in stone, I want this particular phone. They've seen all the ads, they know there's new iPhones out this year, big sizes. They may have seen some Samsung ads, and they have an idea of the kind of the caliber of products that are out there, but I don't know that a lot of people come into the stores sold or even really being pulled towards one or the other. They're just going to kind of wander around, see what's really impressive. And the thing is, when these stores have, one issue is what are the actual phones they can use and what are the dummy units there? Because I was at a Best Buy recently, lots of Samsung functioning models out there. You can play with the Note 4, see all this stuff. But then a lot of the other, like the 1M8s, okay, there were a few that were functional, but others that were just dummies there, and that makes it a lot harder to sell someone on it.
A reader wrote in with that point a number of months ago, and I'm sad that we didn't get to feature it as a standalone piece. But yeah, I mean, I feel like cardboard screen phones in your retail store, that is the surefire way to completely torpedo your sales.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you don't manage to, and I understand it takes money to have like a Samsung plot of tiles in your Best Buy. Like, they're paying a lot of money for that placement, but I think it does them a real service because people get to use the products on the floor. Now, I was in a Staples the other day buying, by the way, the best chair I've ever sat in. It's not this one.
Is it this
I got
chair?
the Staples Air chair, and oh my God, I spent a good amount of money on it, but it's the best chair I've ever had. Anyway, that's not the point. There were some Surface Pro 3s on display, and I wanted to try one out, even though I know about it already. I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing around with this while they're getting my chair.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it because they were locked, right?
They were real, but they were physically.
They were like Windows was locked with a password. It wasn't like wise-ass customers doing it. It was like a Staples like login key. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she made the good point that it's like, yeah, she used to work at a Staples. She's like, they do that so that the sales rep has to come over and unlock it and then sell you on it like it's a car. And I get that thinking, but it's so 1990s thinking, right? It's so like it's almost like
the opposite
they were like,
of Apple.
Yeah, I was just gonna. It's exactly what I said. It's like they looked at the Apple retail model. It's like, oh, Apple's doing pretty well. And what do? Oh, they fill their store with products you can use with no trouble, and then give you help if you ask for it. All right, let's do exactly the opposite of that. Yeah, let's not do that at all. because we know better, because we're staples. Like, stupid, dumb
So,
stuff.
Michael, the big question is, after you found out that the services were locked, did you all the other tablets and change all the home pages to pocketnow.com? Like I've been trolling my local Target.
No, I am not on the guerrilla marketing team for Pocketnow. I need to talk to Jules did it once though. Jules gets
our listeners to do that too.
Clap. There we go. Well done, gentlemen. Both of you.
Every time you say, please leave a review of the weekly where reviews are left, I imagine someone listening to this like on their MP3 player in the bathroom somewhere and scrawling a magic marker on the stall. Pocketnow Weekly #1.
I want to see that in a bathroom above a urinal at some point. Listen to the Pocketnow Weekly.
For a good time.
For a good time, listen to the Pocketnow.
It is a good time.
It is a good time.
Bernard is the next one, but I want to answer Diego with my own thing. Diego, I think you're gonna have to go back to the basics. I think the only way to get people the phone that really fits for them, rather than the phone they think they want because marketing, is to qualify them, qualify the hell out of them. And ask them what their life is like. Ask them what phone they have now. See how how they want their new phone to fit into their life, and to get really good at that, you can start figuring out how to sell them something they don't know they want yet, but will be a good fit. And that last part is crucial, because if you leave out the last part, you're just a snake oil jerkbag. But if you sell them something they're actually gonna like, that's how you become a freaking master salesman. In my opinion. Remember, copies for closer.
For me.
So yeah. Listen, Bernard, is it my turn to read one, everyone?
Are we skipping a leaf here?
Are we skipping who now?
A leaf.
There was one after Diego.
A leaf Precoso. I'm following Jules's rundown on the screen.
Okay.
So
I'm following Jules. We trust his rundown.
Yeah. Bernard Untalan. If it's my turn, I'll read one.
Yeah, go.
The Weekly is one of my favorite podcasts. Thanks, man. The production quality, content, and commentary is insightful and entertaining. Thank you again. One question for the panel. What do you think is the best designed smartphone of all time? Interpret this question however you want, but the primary focus of my query is on aesthetics. My vote, for whatever it's worth, goes to the Nokia N9, an unsurpassed and elegantly simple beauty. I look forward to everyone's response. Thank you all so much for all that you do. Sincerely, Bernard, Oregon, USA. Bernard, thank you very much for the support, and thanks for listening. And thanks for this question, which I specifically chose as as compensation for Adam Dowd, who earlier in the week was like, hey, man, I'm writing this pretty cool piece on classic smartphones. Would you like to contribute? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm really busy. And then he was like, hey, man, it's a day later. You should contribute, because I'm going to push publish. And I'm like, oh, you're going to have to leave me behind. I'm sorry. So, Dow, you published this piece. You've been thinking about classic smartphones of the ages. Why don't you answer this one first? What's your best designed smartphone of all time?
Classic or best design? I mean, that's two different questions.
With an idea on aesthetics, though. You've had your brain in the past this week, so you are the ideal choice to go first. With aesthetics in mind. So remember, we have a little bit of a cheat sheet there. What's the best looking design that you've ever seen? This is a freaking tough question, and I don't blame you for taking a minute.
It is.
Jules is helpfully scrolling past some entries on the screen right now.
I keep coming back. Oh, yeah, that's the classic piece. There's the Trio 650. Yay.
Oh,
no, anyway.
Man, what an ugly brick that sucker was.
But it was such a good phone. Anyway, okay. I keep thinking of all these really pretty phones, but I keep coming back to the one M7 or the one M8. Probably, maybe the M7, just because I'm not sure I like that second eyeball in the back of the M8. But it's just such a gorgeous phone. And
yeah. No word. The M7 is.
I hate to give like a chalk type answer, but
no, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's curved, so it feels great. It looks great, and just yeah. Only the camera didn't suck.
One M7. Yeah. We're okay. We're okay on that.
M7.
That's good. What about you, Steven? Have you got a ready answer here?
I just turned down my mic. I pounded away on my super loud keyboard trying to find an answer here. I don't even have close to one at this point, and because I think my mind's going in two different directions. I'm thinking about the classically pretty, what phone looks fancy, and I can think of a few options along there. Like one M8, I like metal, I like relatively simple designs, clean look. But then I'm also thinking, what is the most appealing looking to me? Because if anyone's been listening to this, I have some weird taste when it comes to phones. And I'm picturing this like awesome clamshell landscape QWERTY folder that may or may not have ever existed, but I couldn't find a suitable example online here. The Nokia N9 reminded me, well, not of that, but the what is it, Nokia the N900, which was a slider, not a folder, but I like industrial-looking phones that look extremely useful above everything else. I don't care if they're a little chunky. I'm sure there's something out there, and I'm going to think of it, and maybe if I can come back next week with the answer, I might have it then. But I don't know. What about you, Michael? What's your aesthetic winner here?
I agree with you guys. I mean, I always think it's sort of a cop-out to soak up so much of response time by saying, man, what a great question. This is so hard. But it is. This is a freaking hard question. And you know what the problem is? The problem is that this question is confined to smartphones. If we opened it up to dumb phones, it would actually paradoxically get a little easier for me, because those were some of the first ones that I really started favoring their industrial design a lot, but there were a lot of ugly ones too, of course. I guess the closest that I could get would be the Moto Q, because it took the Razer design language and applied it to this sort of BlackBerry clone. So it made the best looking and thinnest QWERTY device at the time for me, and factored in an operating system that actually worked pretty well in that form factor, Windows Mobile 5 smartphone edition. And there were a lot of defective units out there, but it worked really nicely for me. And I just really loved the way it looked. I loved how it was a mix of industrial, feature-based design with these exposed speaker grills because they needed to be that big so that it could be loud, and these angled keys that blended really aggressive design with really awesome feedback, and so it was really easy to type on. So I just think the Moto Q would be my answer there. It's a really good question. It's a really hard question.
Yeah. Tough stuff.
Yeah. All right. Who's moving? Thanks for that, Bernard. Who's moving on? What are we doing?
Who's next? I don't even know anymore.
Dowd, you're next.
I think it's Adam's turn. Yeah.
No, but I mean, whose email is next?
It's from Kojo.
Kojo?
Redo, who was very nice to give us the pronunciation key for his name, because I've been calling him Gwadwo Bwadu.
Awesome.
Okay.
Go Kojo. All right. Boy, this is awfully long, but I'll try to summarize as best I can.
Yeah, hop around.
Yeah. First, I'd like to thank you for the work you do, which has been a big reason why I got into tech earlier this year, and will continue to keep myself in the tech loop. Awesome. Cool. Reading an article, quite harsh on HTC following the launch of the Recam in the Nexus 9. People suggested if HTC were to include certain things such as waterproofing, wireless charging, hardware shutter button into their flagships, people would buy their phones. However, I sat back and thought those aspects are not present in what are some of the most popular handsets today, namely the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and are present on some phones that don't sell very well, the Xperia Z. So my question is, out of the following three things, what do you think plays the biggest role in phones selling well? The innovation it has in design and software, the reception it receives from tech journalists, or its brand? Many thanks, Kojo.
That's a depressing question.
Right, isn't it? And it goes nicely with what we were talking about before in the retail space and this marketing thing we always say. For me, the answer is brand. It's very simple. It's the one who advertises the most or the best wins.
Yeah, it's descending order, the opposite. Those were answered. It's brand first, then I think maybe not just the smartphone, the tech press, but I mean in general when you see whatever the CNN anchors are talking about. Yes, they're going to talk about the new iPhone came out this week. Is anyone caring that Galaxy Alpha is out? No, it's the phones that get mentioned, and I think the last thing is the actual features, what hit and miss is there.
Very good point. Jules made a good point on this. He said, it doesn't help that major sites have the iPhone as the first thing in their what to get lists because, it's the first thing on people's minds, and on the loop goes.
I felt compelled to put it first in our Pocketnow holiday shopping guide because I know this is the phone a lot of people are going to be considering first when looking for a phone this season.
Spoiler.
What they want.
Where did you already publish it?
Like a week ago.
Yeah. A week. Sorry. No, I would be inclined to agree. I think it's brand first, brand/marketing, and only later do people start to look at. Basically, if brand doesn't sell the phone, and if tech journalists don't sell the phone, then people start looking at the nitty-gritty stuff, the one-off features, the camera button, the water resistance. Stuff like that. I think it's only I think people use those more as differentiators between should I get X or Y.
Yeah, but even still, I think. Go on.
Well, no, but I mean, before you even consider X and Y, or I should say, brand is why people consider X and Y. The little things are why people choose between X and Y.
That said, I think it's really easy to decide that these things don't matter to you. You may go in thinking, oh, it'd be really nice to have a waterproof phone. I'm a klutz. I'm going to spill something. I hear that a lot of phones are waterproof these days. That's what I'm going to get. You go in and you see the iPhone 6 and like, oh, the new iPhone's so big. I always wish it were bigger. But it's not waterproof, and then it's really easy to say, well, okay, I just won't spill anything on it then. I think the shutter button too. It's like, well, okay, I can just use the software. It's really easy to convince yourself. And when it comes down to the line there, that these things, they don't matter that much. Because all the other things, the deals and the reputation are so more weighted.
And there's another factor here, too, that wasn't brought up in the initial email, and that's peer pressure. And, that implies a negative connotation, but, what are your friends using?
Press factors into that. It's what are other people telling you should be using.
No. Then that's not what I mean. It's not that. It's the press. But the press is a different category.
If they're all on like iMessage and you want to be on it too.
Exactly right. If you're hanging out with your friends in the classroom or the green room or the horse stable or whatever the shit you do with your life, and they're all like having a great time on iMessage, then you're like, wow, man, I really need to get an iPhone. Or they're all having they're all are doing Hangouts. You can do that on iOS or Android, but. I
don't know. I think it's not so much that, but also just seeing what your friends have and hearing them talk about the phones and stuff like that. I don't even think it's iMessage per se. It's just the fact that they have an iPhone. I don't think iMessage is a compelling enough feature to pull people to iPhone.
No,
in the same way that I don't think BlackBerry Messenger was a good feature to tout towards BlackBerry fans.
But it was. But that's exactly what it did, Dowd. BlackBerry Messenger fueled BlackBerry's growth for literally years, because if you didn't have a BBM pin, then you couldn't be in the club.
And that's exactly what iOS and Android anyway.
What?
So, then they released it to iOS and Android anyway.
Right, but right, and then it becomes a shitty example for the conversation. So, iMessage is doing exactly that right now for iPhone. I wonder what percentage of iPhone sales. It's small, but it's significant, I would say, where people are like, man, I really wish I was in your group chat. Why can't I be in your group chat? Get an iPhone. Oh, okay.
I guess. It's just my wife, wants a new phone and needs a new phone, I should say.
My wife.
She was saying, well, what about the Samsung phones? And I just asked him, like, is there any particular reason? I'm trying to be very neutral about it. Is there any particular reason why Samsung? And she's like, well, yeah, it's because, this person has a Samsung and this person has a Samsung. Oh, okay, well, then.
She wants to use Chat On and milk.
Yeah, exactly. Chat On and milk. Those are the two big Samsung drivers.
Let's move on. That's a good question, Kojo. I don't think we're going to get to the answer at this point. It's time for us to hear from Joe again. And
there's another one there.
Joe is answering a question from Eric Rekut, R-E-K-U-T. And Stephen, I think it's your turn to read. Did you read Joe last time?
I did. Wait, Eric, there's one from William Lee. Where's this?
That's okay. We'll get to it later on.
So wait, what are we?
We're going to Eric Rekut is asking questions about Cyanogen mod, and Joe has a great answer. And I'm really glad that Joe Levi took the time to draft these up for folks, because some of these just have to be answeed by Joe. He's the expert. Stephen, if you're having trouble,
I'm not seeing this one.
I'm not seeing it either.
I'm sorry. It's in the email that I forwarded to you from Joe. So these are from Joe. Just search your inbox.
It's only the William Lee one.
Just search your inbox for REKUT.
Okay.
Jules, if we could chop this from the HQ, that would be awesome too.
No, you did not.
Keep it.
No REKUT.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see this one, dude.
All right. I'll send you. I will send it to you, friends.
Send it to both of us, so he can read it, and Stephen can read the question, and I'll be Joe, because I get the
No, I want to be Joe at least.
No, it's my turn to be Joe.
All right. You get to be Joe then.
If you had a beard, you could be Joe, Michael.
Fun fact, Stephen, your last name is very similar to the last name of a professor I had in college, a journalism professor, actually, and I almost sent this email to him. So that would have been a very confusing and weird moment. I'll tell you what, I'll read the front part of this since I already have it, and then, Dowd, you do the Joe. Eric Recute writes in, on a recent episode of the podcast, while talking about the idea of flashing Black Phone with Cyanogen mod, Joe said, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Flash the Cyanogen on any other device and use that, disabling permissions feature, and get Black Phone apps and get the Black Phone application suite. Love the show. You're doing an outstanding job. So there's a question in there somewhere, and Joe was able to find the answer. Dowd, are you ready to read Joe's response?
I'm pretty sure you just forwarded me the same email that we were just talking about.
All right, listen, I'm doing Joe. Great questions, Eric. Black Phone runs a version of Android called the Private OS. Its main purpose in life is security and privacy. Cyanogen mod has a lot of the same features built in, but it's designed for a different audience with a different purpose. If you're going to go with a Black Phone, keep the Private OS. If you want to try and reproduce what Black Phone offers on different hardware, Cyanogen, with the security settings cranked up, and the software suite that comes with Black Phone is a great option, but not as thorough or secure as Black Phone.
Okay, I just found it.
Great
questions, Eric.
Perfect timing.
I hope that question was answered adequately by Joe. I'm certain that it was. I have nothing to add. Let's move on to Alex Ong. Stephen, would you care to read that one if you can find it?
Yeah, Alex writes in, I feel that OEMs is very good in terms of Lollipop update, but seems that many people are complaining that they buy Nexus devices to get the fastest update, but LG G3 and Moto X are getting it first. What do we think? And Joe responds, one of the reasons us Nexus owners buy a Nexus over any other device is at least in part thanks to these timely updates, which Joe so appropriately puts in quotes this time around. Even though Motorola and LG beat Google to the punch this time, updates for Nexus devices weren't far behind. I don't think we've ever been promised that we'd be first, just timely. Joe mentions he wrote on this topic, this very topic on Friday in his article, Lightning Fast OEM Android Updates, an OEM success or a Google failure, which I just have to say that was my idea for the editorial. So credit where credit's due, Joe. Thanks.
Well done, sir.
Rather than a Nexus failure, Joe writes, I think this illustrates a Google and an OEM success. Faster Android updates are a benefit for everyone, so he's not going to complain that just because he has a Nexus, his got there a few days later. What he will complain about is how the HSPA and LTE versions of the Nexus tablets are not getting their timely updates at all, and wonders what is up with that, Google. What indeed? I mean, they weren't that far behind. I don't know that the G3 story was the first one to get a lot of press over the weekend, but I don't think the updates were out straight away. And then the Moto X news came the same day, like an hour before the Nexus 5 update. Well, at least factory image was available. So we're not like we're waiting days or weeks here. This is minutes, right?
Sure.
I don't know, actually.
No.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
I'm actually trying to find
42.
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't know. This is one of those really, really deep, complex ones, and then I was distracted by somebody
in your head.
You saw something shiny again? What have I told you?
The problem with these emails are that they go on forever. So I don't know. Stephen, I trust your response.
Actually, I trust Joe's response, technically.
Joe, I trust your response. Yeah.
Do we want to do another Joe one, or what's next on the rundown?
Joe answered a lot. Wow.
He did,
and that's terrific.
He's
I want to
make a worker bee.
In the Q&A, Eric Rickood makes the point that, guys, you butchered my main question. I was talking about CM, Cyanogen mod for average user. Eric, that's not, your initial email, I don't think made that clear, and B, this clarification makes nothing clear. So if you could tell us exactly what the hell you're asking, that would be awesome.
We'll do our best.
We'd really love to answer your question, but we don't have Joe in the air, first of all, so if we butchered it on the first round, then I don't know, maybe we'll have to get Joe to respond to you separately. But let's give it another try. Submit it in the Q&A, make it, get it upvoted, and let's see what we got. Q&A people, please help Eric out. Upvote it to the top of the stack. We'll take another crack at it, I promise. We're giving it a shot. Is it time for a shock, Jacob, guys?
A what?
Say yes. Say yes.
Yes,
Time for a short
Michael.
Jacob. I'm convinced that I'm the only one who watches the video feed now.
Oh,
Or did you guys just cover up the window? Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
look
yeah,
at
yeah.
that. Okay.
I just have my own video feed full screen because I just want to look at myself the
You
whole
just want
time.
to watch yourself the whole time. Listen, greetings from New Zealand, Pocketnow team. Stephen, you'll read the next one, all right?
Okay.
The idea of using Google-free Android, replacing all Google services with open-source, non-proprietary offerings, has been gaining traction among tech people, and possibly members of Pocketnow, ? Who want all the benefits of a smartphone, but are uncomfortable with the idea of sending all their information to Google, be it through Google Now, Hangouts, or Google Dialer. This is something that's interested me for a long time, but as someone who uses all these services, the prospect of losing the features I use daily has kept me away. Will the functionality gap between privacy-conscious software and proprietary software eventually close? Or is using services like Google Now and being privacy-focused doomed to forever be mutually exclusive? Sorry, I misspoke there. Thanks for the excellent balance between hilarity and informativeness, A. Jacob. Thanks. I think that they are forever doomed to be mutually exclusive because I'm in the same boat. Anytime a phone, that's why I asked about the Battlestar Galactica phone. Is it AOSP or does it have the full Google suite? Because if it doesn't have the full Google suite, I'm not using Android. I don't care.
Deal breaker. Yeah.
It's so important.
Well,
and what
it's
we really need is a Google subscription service where you pay them, I don't even want to guess what my information is worth, $150 a year, and they promise to throw out all their data at the end, stop recording it, give you full control over it. I don't know, but
cross their heart and hope to die. Okay.
The only way this is going to get better is if there's a non-free alternative to the free software out there, because the free stuff we're monetizing ourselves. Unless you're willing to pay, and probably pay pretty dearly for all these services, you're not going to get anything close to the value you get out of these free ones that are you selling your data, your personal data.
I just
talked about. I'm sorry, Adam. We talked about the 90s before, and just put yourself back there for a second if you're old enough to remember what it was like. Anytime you wanted a piece of software for your computer, you had to buy it and then get the CD-ROM and install it and whatever. But you had to buy it. Imagine, now translate that to smartphones. Imagine if we still use the same business model. You'd pay for every app you downloaded. You'd pay for Hangouts. If there's a Google conversation, you'd pay for Drive. You'd pay for Docs and Sheets and all that stuff that they throw in here. But you don't. And so, as everyone says, the big cliched thing is if you're not the customer, you're the product. So
well, we had shareware.
Yeah, but shareware would work for just like 20 hours of AOL, then you pay.
Some of them though, like PKZip, I remember, or WinZip or something. I didn't register, and I get your 30-day trial period's over. You are now 2,000 days into your trial. Do you want to register?
Yeah. Or you'd only get to the first. You'd only get to play through the first 100 moves of Hugo's House of Horrors.
Those have sort of matured. Those like Nagware have matured into adware because now we have these perpetual internet connections that developers can monetize their apps by putting lots of little ads in the banners in there and things. So it's changed the type of free software that's out there. I don't know that it didn't exist wholly in the 90s, but certainly it's the ability to make money off the free to download. And I was thinking about this last week when Apple was changing it's free to get and all that, has made these apps that don't have an upfront cost a lot more attractive to users, such that I imagine a lot of people, if they were given the option to, just wouldn't even look at the paid apps. There's so many good free ones available. So
I don't know.
That's changed the ecosystem.
Yeah, maybe it's me. I'm the world's most boring person, so if Google really wants to know how many times I call my wife a day, that's fine. I think when people hear privacy and privacy issues and Google's scanning your data and collecting all your data, I think they assume that this is like an enemy of the state Will Smith type of thing, where they're literally tracking your every step as you commute to and from work. They're not doing that. All Google is doing is getting your interests and saying, hey, you're a geocacher. Well, maybe you want an ad from this geocaching website. Now, I don't care about ads, whether they're from geocaching websites or whether they're from Ferrari websites. I'm not going to go to it. It doesn't matter to me. And so you can try to feed me all the ads that you want, whether they're tailored to my interests or not. If I need it, I'm going to click on it. If I don't, I won't. It's that simple. And I think people are getting all freaked out about this, oh, I don't want Google to have my data, and everybody has your data. Everybody, if you're using an Android phone, Android has your data. Google has your data. I'm sorry, it's a reality. Apple has your data. Windows, Microsoft has your data. Everybody has your data. It's an open market, and your life is for sale.
I'm less willing to concede that it's not a big deal, but I also have found myself in recent years sort of getting into this mindset. You can't fight this and be as productive as you'd want to be. It was hard to even you socialize with your friends if you're not on the same instant message platform as them. It has hard realities of trying to not share your data impact your life in negative ways. So I think a lot of us are just conceding, well, okay, I'll give up this info just to make my life a little easier. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I still think there's something to be said for people who are going to go out of their way to hide this for whatever reasons. It's your choice how you want to present yourself to these companies.
And I mean, the other thing is, with services like Google Now, if you want it to show you calendar appointments and suggest calendar appointments for you, just last week, Google Now completely saved my bacon because I thought I had an appointment at 5 when actually it was at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I was going to show up at this place 7 hours after I was supposed to be there. And it's all because Google Now scanned my email, saw the appointment, and asked me the day before, do you want to add this as a calendar reminder? And I said, hell yeah. So, I mean, and I got that because Google has my data. And you know what? If you want your apps to work the way you want them to, it's the price you're going to have to pay.
I wish that story was literally about saving your bacon, and this was a meeting you had with your local butcher to pick up some wonderful salted.
Absolutely, for your bacon turkey stuffing for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. Damn right.
Eric Racoud has clarified a little bit for us, but not much. Joe suggested flashing CM for average users and using Black Phone Suite if privacy is a big deal to people. Yeah, it sounds good. I raised the point that it's not the way to go for most users because Cyanogen doesn't bring 100% stability, and rooting is troublesome. Good counterpoint, Eric. I mean, like, is this if there's a question attached, I'd love to hear it because it's a solid point. I don't want to root, and Cyanogen doesn't bring 100% stability. I would make the point that nothing brings 100% stability, but your point is well taken, Eric. It's a good counter argument. If you have a question appended to it, toss it in the Q&A, and folks upvote it one last time. But Eric, if that's all you were saying, that's a really good counterpoint, and it's well taken, certainly.
I don't see the problem with root, but that's a discussion for another day.
I don't want to get root. Hey, listen, William Lee is next on our write-in, and this is like a long question and a long answer. So, and it might also be one of those ones that you guys have a difficult time finding because it was in one of Joe's long threads.
I am already at the point where I can't find anything we're doing now.
I think I had that one.
No, I know William Lee. He was the second one in Joe's. I got that.
Oh, you got that? All right, cool. Well, Joe's response is 4 paragraphs. Why don't we tag team it, guys? Steven, you want to read the question, and we can all go back and forth?
Sure.
Good, let's do it.
William Lee writes in about an OEM update lag, saying, Android OEMs have improved their update lag time a lot in recent years, but the problem is still when you get your update on, say, your Note 3, it won't be the same as the software that maybe the Note 4 gets. Yes, there are little hardware barriers, but I think it's just companies forcing you to upgrade your phone by intentionally not giving users the latest and greatest. While this is a valid way of stimulating new device sales, I don't think it's the smartest thing to do.
And Joe seems to react positively to that with his first paragraph. You've hit the nail on the head, William. Android is often the target of jabs about OS fragmentation. The latest version of iOS, on the other hand, is pushed to the majority of old devices, but Apple fragments the features that older hardware gets. It's the same argument put another way. Dad?
Your point about OEMs not wanting to put too much time into updates for old hardware is spot on. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. You'll probably get updates for 18 to 24 months after a device has been released, if it's a flagship, less if it's not. Google feels your pain and is pulling apps and services out of the Android build and pushing them into the Play Store. This lets you get updates that would normally have to wait on OEM carrier update directly from Google OTA. Other OEMs are following suit, pushing their apps to the Play Store for update distribution.
Yeah, all good points and a nice technical bit of answer. And then finally, also, when is Joe going to return to the podcast? I really miss it's a great day to be alive. Thanks for that, William. Scheduling is particularly challenging since I do most of my Pocketnow work at night when the rest of the team is asleep. Don't count on it, Joe. Until the stars align, we're trying this new format. Make sure you let us know how you like it. Until then, yes, it is a great day to be alive.
And I think things are definitely getting better on the Android spectrum. Manufacturers like Motorola is being real upfront about which devices will and won't be getting software updates for how long. Android One platform has commitment for, I think it's at least 2 years of updates. And how great a success is it that the Nexus 4 got Lollipop when a year prior was it the Galaxy, I remember if it's the Galaxy Nexus or Nexus S. I've already forgotten the order of these, but that was left behind 2 years in, and Google's bringing it along for the latest version of Android. So progress in some areas, maybe not as much as we'd like to see, but it's coming along.
Yeah. I have some exciting news, guys. We are at the last piece of listener mail with Elif Prakoso's mail. And so before we hit that, I just want to hit a couple of the Q&As that have been riding high for a little bit. This one is from Jin Yik. I'm currently 16, he writes. I really want to get into the tech journalism thing when I get out of school. How do you suggest I build up my foundations so I could enter this industry easily?
Get Twitter. That's the reason I'm sitting here right now, is because I have a Twitter account. So
actually,
that is
my
first and best advice.
And we'll answer that question in a little more detail with the last piece of listener mail, which deals with how we came on board. Yeah, Get Twitter is really good. Engage. It would be my argument that this is one of those cool fields where as long as you possess enough enthusiasm for the subject matter and you can skillfully elucidate your views, well then, you're kind of golden as long as the timing works out. Stephen, what would you say?
Start creating.
Word elucidate.
Yeah, Did I use that right? Because if I didn't, then it's going to be real ironic.
Jen, what you got to do is create content. It's easier than, well, it's been easy for a while to get your voice out there. Set up a simple blog. Start voicing your opinions about devices. You probably won't have a huge following at first, but if people like what they see, they'll pick up, and it gives you an opportunity to develop your voice. And don't forget about video. It's only going to get bigger. We have a gigantic following on YouTube, and if you can get out there, not only you're putting your writing, you're putting your face. People will see you, recognize you as someone who has opinions that they value, and then when you're finally at a point where you're looking for make a career out of this, you have this awesome library of content you've put out there to start showing off to people. So get your opinions out there and get them out soon and keep them coming.
And I want to make the point that we're advising based on the current state of the tech reporting space. But Jen is 16 right now, and it's going to be a different space when he is ready to enter it. And I want to make the point that
you're going to swing back to print journalism by then, I'm pretty sure.
No, but the foundations of what built the print journalism empire are now being applied. And what I'm saying is that the bar is being raised a little bit. The barrier to entry is getting a little bit higher. Not entry, anyone can enter, but the barrier to success is getting a little higher because you have firms coming out who are using old school principles of not just integrity, but real reporting excellence. And that's really making this into a mature field. Plus the fact that tech journalism is becoming regular journalism is like a crazy thing because everything is tech-based. Like everything has to do with tech. Yeah. So this is a very growing segment, but it's also a segment where a lot of heavy hitters are doing a better and better job every single day. So you really need to hone your game. If you're still 16 and you have an interest in journalism itself, I really think the foundations of what the future is going to be built on are old school journalism. So I would get an education in that.
No, don't go to journalism school.
I wouldn't go to school necessarily, but why are you so anti that?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like everything I hear about people who have gotten degrees specifically in journalism end up getting frustrated with the field, falling out. Find something specific you like. If you're into phones, maybe engineering, maybe computer science, that'll just make you all the more enabled to write about these things if you understand them.
Well, Jules, our podcast producer, is in journalism school right now, and I would be
Run away, Jules! Run away!
Is my audio going to be really lousy for the high-quality version of this? It's going to be static the whole time.
There is said for a
Jules Jules is making a rare showing of his face on the show. Do you have any bit of input that you want to give in the chat or an audio, Jules? Yeah, we have to
record
mute him.
your audio.
We have to, yeah, right. We can't. So Jules, contribute in the chat, and we'll see if we can get one last bit of Q&A in here.
Yeah, it's really important just to make sure that you have, if you want to, whatever you want to do in terms of journalism, study that. So if you want to make videos, study video making. If you want to get into writing, study English or your native language, whatever that happens to be. Just make sure you're not taken down by the details. You can have a really great broad knowledge about a certain topic, but if you can't communicate effectively, whether that's video, whether that's writing, whether that's speaking, then you're going to lose your message to crap, basically.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And don't get yourself wrapped up in what the audience thinks, especially to begin with, because everyone will hate you to start with.
Don't feed the trolls.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, there's one last Q&A question or two. Steve Lamont says, are any Black Friday deals you guys plan on getting? This is a great question. I wish I'd waited to buy the Moto X until now, because they're giving $150 off the unlocked one on Motorola.com. Yeah. Freaking awesome. What about you guys? Are you getting any Black Friday stuff?
I
might angle my wife towards the Galaxy Alpha with the 1 penny or 99-cent Galaxy Tab or Samsung Galaxy Tab deal that AT&T is running, or something like that. I heard something about that on the radio, or maybe it was in Steven's piece, but it was something about if you get a Galaxy Alpha, then you can also get a really cheap Samsung tablet, because she also wants a new e-reader or e-reader type device. So I think I confused Steven on that.
I spent far too much time yesterday poring over all these Black Friday listings, and I have to say there's nothing really on the phone side that's very compelling to me. The one thing that excited me for a moment was when HTC announced this deal on the Re camera, because I've been hoping this was going to be the second week of its hot deals thing after the Nexus 9. And I turned to Michael, I'm like, should I get this? And Michael probably quite wisely advised against it. It's just a really awesome deal, but I am interested in some of these. Newegg had some great tech stuff. 4 terabyte hard drives for like $110. That's just crazy amounts of data. Maybe a new monitor. I don't know. Wow. That's what I need.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. We've got that whole piece that Steven put together very well. So check it out if you want to shop. Just us. I mean, I was tempted, but no. I suck at waiting for things. So if I see something I like, I just buy it right away. I'm a manufacturer or a salesman's dream come true, basically. Alex Romero, finally, when will you guys do a podcast while drunk? Who says we're not?
You think we're not?
We're not sober.
I have
this ain't water.
That's a bad idea. I have so much alpha-methyltryptamine in my system right now. I don't think alcohol would be a good idea.
Whoa! How do you get that? Are you huffing paint?
Something like that.
All right, listen here. This is a piece of listener mail that was, held to the end for this very reason, so we could end on a really solid note. And
the lost episode. Gotcha.
I'm going to say it. Hey guys, I'm an avid listener of the podcast, and I love watching your reviews and comparison videos. Thank you, Alif Prakoso. Anyways, a question that I'm itching to know the answer to is this. How did you guys first join Pocketnow? Tell me the story. I like this. I've told this story a million times. People are tired of my story. But I feel like we should start with Dowd because his story is very simple.
Well, yeah. How did I? Well, okay. I first got into the tech scene, like I said before, because I started a Twitter account, and basically that's just that ballooned from there. How I actually joined Pocketnow though. A couple years ago, Pocketnow was running a contest to give away a Galaxy Note 2, I think. Oh, yeah. And part of the contest was you had to read Pocketnow's pieces, and at the end of random pieces throughout the week was a trivia question that you had to answer based on something in the editorial.
Really involved, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the Wednesday question was actually part of the podcast, was part of the weekly. So that's how I started listening to the Pocketnow Weekly. And I don't remember if it was that episode or if it was a couple episodes after. But Tony and Brandon were on, and they mentioned, by the way, we're hiring. And so I had written a few pieces for WebOS Roundup once upon a time. And so I just figured, what the hell? So I found my best 3 and threw together my resume, and I emailed it off. And few weeks later, and I thought nothing of it after that. I'm just like, whatever, I tried. And a few weeks later, I got an email from Tony and said, let's schedule an interview, and rest is history.
Very nice.
It was very cool because I didn't know that Adam had been hired. I didn't know that I knew that we'd brought a new guy on, and I would eventually have to get to know him. But I did not know that it was Dead Technology, who had been talking to on Twitter for like 8 months at that point. So that was a really nice surprise. I really enjoyed that.
See, I also came in under the shadow of Taylor, so that should be. I kind of snuck in under the radar because Taylor was like really the big fish of that particular excursion.
Big acquisition. Our poach job.
But technically, I did publish before he did, so I'm hanging my hat on that.
Steven's ashamed to be a part of this motley crew, one of whom is wearing a jumpsuit for no reason. Steven, how'd you come on board?
I owe my association with Pocketnow to Mr. Evleaks himself, Evan Blass, whom I've known since we were children, just a couple blocks away from each other. And as adults, I'd been checking in with him every few years, and he had hooked me up with these great opportunities to write for other sites in the past. I happened to be looking for work several years ago, and he mentioned that Pocketnow is looking for new writers. He put me on the phone with Brandon, and right away they had me doing some part-time posts. A couple months later, Brandon offered to do it full-time for me, so I made the jump there.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. Awesome. It's all about who you know.
So there you have it. You have Dowd, you joined Twitter, and then you have Steven, which is grow up.
Live near a leaker. Yeah.
And then it should be noted that getting on board is only the first step. You have to stay on board, and that's where the excellence comes in, or something. I don't know. I'm just basically trying to make it sound like whatever. Jules is also on this podcast, and he makes the good point that he came on board. He was able to come on board because he asked.
Asking does get you very far in life.
It sure does, man. Jules would hit me up on Twitter one day and was like, "Hey, I forgot even how he opened the conversation, but he was like, "Hey, technology." And I was like, "Yes, indeed, technology." And then he was like, "Hey, listen to WERS for a shout out." And I was like, "Okay." So I tune into Emerson Radio, WERS.org, and Jules is on the air, and he's like, "And just if you want to get Jules is like, remember, if you want ERS in your pocket, if you want ERS on the go, get the mobile app so you can put us in your pocket now." And I was like, LOL, that's hilarious. And I was like, thanks a lot, man, on Twitter. And then Jules was like, sweet, can I have an internship? And I was like, what?
Okay.
I don't know, what can you do? And then we found out that Jules is a master at not only running a podcast, but also editing video. And that makes all of us very happy.
Free labor for the win.
And sometimes it's all about timing. My story is very long, but to make it short, I was at a really rough point in my life. I was sort of tired of my career, and I was looking for something new. And I'd been reading tech blogs for 10 years, and
yes,
and the opportunity arose. Pocketnow posted a hiring post, and I simply said,
"Hey, what?
Jesus, Dad, you suck so hard."
Am I muted or what?
No, you're not.
No.
Muted.
What do you mean I'm not muted?
I don't understand how any of this works.
I do not think the Yeti is.
Can I pause? Is there a pause?
Dowd, you're fired. And
hey, we're hiring, folks.
Yeah, there you go. No,
this is how you leave
blinking. It is blinking.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever. Go ahead, talk. Okay, I'm done.
Nixon blinking it.
Pocketnow said they were hiring. I submitted some pieces, as I'd submitted pieces to so many sites before. Pocketnow are, to this date, still the only ones ever to invite me to submit a second piece. And I've been here ever since. Jules is wondering how he can edit out that last bit to make it sound normal. No, leave that one, Jules. That was gold. We were stumbling over how email works an hour ago. That needs to come out. So anyway, listen here. It's a longer story than that, and maybe on our drunk podcast I'll tell it because I can tell it way better than that. But it's time for us to get out of here, everyone. We have work to do. Thanksgiving is tomorrow, and we need to get our work done so that we can actually appreciate it. And to that end, I'm going to see if I can get through the end cap to the show without Dowd talking to someone else while he thinks he's muted. What do you think, Adam? Adam has turned off his camera intelligently.
That'll solve that.
Listen, everyone, as a note on music, our transition track is called Radiation. You know it by now. It's by Ali Spagnola. If you haven't been to her website by now, I don't understand you as a human. She's got millions of fans around the world. You should be one of them. Go to her YouTube channel, Ali Spags, youtube.com/Ali Spags. Once again, alispagnola.com. She's very funny. You should check her out. And with all of that said, that's going to do it for this giant stack of listener mail episode of the Pocketnow Weekly, produced by Jules Wong, tweeting about civil unrest at Greenpoint Zero and spanning sweet records at wers.org. Spinning, even. Also, be sure to find the hosts on the internets. Steven's resisting the urge to tweet and doing a damn fine job of it at Stephen Schenk, StephenSchenkk. Dowd is pimping his own tech podcast, Techbeard, Tekbeard, in between bouts of pissing off major corporations at Dead Technology. And I'm probably alienating a few brands myself at Captain 2 Phones. It's Captain, the number 2 Phones. Pocketnow is also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. And again, if you enjoy the podcast, please help us spread the word. Leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Xbox, wherever podcasts are heard. If you've done so already, we thank you so much. As always, we thank you as well for listening. We thank our sponsor at Squarespace. If you celebrate it, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll be back with more mobile tech talk next week.